What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Awesemo.com's NBA Live Before Lock show presented by SuperDraft. I'm Dave Loughran. With me, the hatless Adam Scherer. Looks like you got a haircut. Did you do it on your own? Did you go somewhere? Did you just take a straight clippers to it and make it happen?
Yeah, third one I've given myself during quarantine or whatever, and all three have gone really poorly. But I just hate, like, I'm not going anywhere, and I hate having hair that's all over the place. So
yeah, I don't blame you. I've been having my sister-in-law cut mine, but she is actually like a stylist, and she can cut men's hair, so she does a decent job. I go over there, throw her $20. It works out okay. But anyway, we got no hat. I'm rocking the hat. I also am getting a DraftKings cutout for baseball, and I'm wearing these exact clothing for the Phillies game. So keep an eye out for me, Adam.
Wait, you're doing what?
You know?
Got it. Now I'm following. Yeah, okay. I forgot we didn't have fans. I was like, what the hell are you talking about?
Above the draft. It's so dumb, but I'm doing it anyway. I don't care. I thought about doing something absurd, but Justine turned me against that idea. Anyway, welcome to everyone watching the show. Happy to have you guys. Excuse me. Too much talking. Too much smoking. Happy to have all of you guys with us. We've got about 54 minutes until lock. And, well, 4-game slate. Sal Vetri and I broke it down earlier today on the NBA Strategy Show. Adam and I will take a slightly different approach. I'm going to let him run with a lot of this, given that you heard most of my opinions earlier in the day. But we do have some news, as a matter of fact, with Aaron Gordon being sidelined. So we'll kick it off with that one, 1:30 p.m. start time between Orlando and Milwaukee. Adam, I had thought that Gordon would play in game one of the postseason. That's not the case. He had gone through practices, but hadn't gone through any contact practices. I guess you could just call them like walkthroughs in a sense from a basketball standpoint. The line has now moved Milwaukee minus 13.5, 225 total. What are we doing with Orlando now that Aaron Gordon is sitting? As it stands right now, if this game stays close, you're going to be getting a lot of minutes and quite a bit of usage from the main players here, specifically Nikola Vucevic. But how appealing is he actually with Gordon out?
Yeah, I think this game's really Jordan and I were talking about it before you came into the room before the show, but this game's really important, but also it doesn't make me feel very good because the Magic are already missing Jonathan Isaac. Now they're missing Aaron Gordon. Who is supposed to be slowing down, anyone on Milwaukee, but specifically Giannis from this team? Like you're missing the two guys that would have any remote chance of being able to do it. So, and Milwaukee clearly is just a far better team. So there's very significant risk that this game doesn't go 4 quarters. But at the same time, Orlando is really cheap. I mean, their DraftKings pricing, you have Fournier at 4,900. He's got a 26.5% usage rate in the games he's played without Aaron Gordon and with Vucevic since last season. Markelle Fultz starting at 4,200. Terence Ross, 4,500. His scoring will be needed off the bench. All of these guys have very large roles, and they grow a little bit without Gordon. So I think the salaries do factor in the chance that you might only get 3 quarters from them. It's really scary, but I think that just the savings on a slate where you have James Harden, you have Giannis, you have Lillard, you have plenty of guys to pay up for. I'm going to end up getting to a lot of Orlando, and it's just scary.
It's very scary, but it's just the way it goes. And, when you look at somebody like Markelle Fultz, this guy played 24 minutes in game 8 when he started. He played 8 minutes in all 3 quarters. Would he have played 32 minutes? Would he have played 30 plus minutes? It's very possible. Does he get overlapping minutes with Augustine today more than he normally would? It's possible. I'm giving Fultz more minutes than I normally would. And while I do expect a cheap Augustine to garner some ownership coming off the bench, and it's logical, I think Fultz coming into the starting lineup probably makes a considerable impact on his value.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the usage you don't expect the usage to go up playing more minutes with Vooch and with Fournier, but the minutes, especially that price tag, the minutes are the big thing there. I expect him to get a lot of ownership. I'll have a ton. I don't have any reason not to. So Yeah, it's scary, but it's a $4,200 Markelle Fultz, who is a productive player who is getting more minutes now.
Okay, so how many minutes are you giving him?
I have him at 32.
Okay, yeah, I'm assuming you also looked at last game and saw what his rotations looked like before him and Vooch were benched in the fourth quarter in a meaningless game, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think so too. What are you giving Augustine? Because they're gonna overlap a little bit, at least in the second half or in the second quarter, and maybe in the fourth a little bit.
I have him at 26. I gave him a couple extra minutes when Gordon was ruled out. I think maybe you just see a little bit more of Fultz and Augustine alongside each other. It's still not enough to make him really appealing play for me. I'm not planning on really rostering him with Fultz either. But I think he plays in the mid-20s. Because really, when you're taking Aaron Gordon's minutes away, your options are either run more lineups with Augustine or give more minutes to like Wesley Wundu or Gary Clark. I'm not really sure any of those are very appealing options.
What about Terence Ross? He's somebody that intrigues me a little bit because, as I mentioned earlier in the morning, against Milwaukee, you need somebody that can gun. And Terence Ross is pretty enigmatic. He's unpredictable. There's no doubt about that. He's streaky and he's very scoring dependent. But at the same time, he's somebody that is going to jack up a lot of three-pointers. Milwaukee allows a ton of three-point attempts. They play at the most elevated pace in the league. Does Terence Ross have a path to a big game here if he gets off to a hot start and sees 30+ minutes?
Yeah, I think he does for sure. I think that he's a really scary play, but I'm going to get a lot of him because Gordon being out opens up more minutes. This is an Orlando team that is absolutely outmatched by Milwaukee. Milwaukee does, like you said, tend to give up a lot of three-pointers by design. It's not an accident. And Ross is kind of the X factor here, where if Orlando were to surprise and really be competitive, it's probably because Terence Ross is knocking down a lot of shots. So, I do think that Ross, and as cheap as he is also, Ross, he's obviously scoring dependent. He's very capable of going out there and giving you absolutely nothing. But I think that at his price, I'm going to end up getting to a lot of him.
How about the rest of this team when it comes to, the Fourniers of this world? You mentioned the Wundu a little bit. They're going to have to run James Ennis out there for what I would imagine to be a somewhat extended period of time. Orlando, while they are huge dogs, are playing in a massive pace-up spot against the team that will run and will probably allow a decent amount of scoring, even if they blow them out by 20. Is there anybody else here that appeals to you for the Orlando Magic?
Not so James Ennis, I think you can look to as a value. I expect him to play 30 to 32 minutes. What he does on the floor, who knows? But he's only 3,400, and again, there's a lot of stuff you want to pay up for on this slate. So I actually have him a little bit higher than DJ Augustine in that value range. Plus, Ennis is a forward as opposed to a guard, and we know that guard spots really come with a lot of upside, especially in the playoffs where those guys are just dominating touches and taking more shots. So I do have some interest in Ennis. Vooch, on the surface, I think is fine, but he's the one I think he concerns me the most as far as who you're getting in lineups with him, because everyone else that we talked about in Orlando is really cheap. Even if this game's only 3 quarters, they can do fine for their salaries. Vooch is expensive enough where if he goes out there and has a really big game and keeps this game competitive, you probably want to make sure you have one of the main Milwaukee guys with him. And he's expensive enough that even if he's playing well, if this game goes 3 quarters, he's really likely to disappoint at that price tag. So even though I like Vooch, and obviously, I think his usage goes up without Gordon, I think that his numbers across the board go up. He is more concerning to me than the cheap Orlando guys.
I would just much rather have somebody like Bam Adebayo at a $1,400 discount. And it's not even close to me. Not to mention that while Bam Adebayo's matchup is better, he also is more likely to get full, completely extended run in what's expected to be a closer game. I'm with you on that. We'll get to him in a minute. And by the way, all your questions, I see them rolling in. I want to kind of maintain the flow of this. So if you have questions, if you're just asking them in chat to other people, fire away. If you're asking for us to answer them, we definitely will, but just hold on to them. We'll get to them a little bit later in the show. Once we get through this, we didn't forget about you guys. Okay. On the opposite side of this one, Giannis is 10-5 on DraftKings. It's pretty alarming. On FanDuel, you've got him coming in at $11,000, and there's no doubt that ownership is going to sway heavily based on what his owner or what his salary looks like. For example, on DraftKings, you're getting him weighing in north of 42, almost 43%, 29% on FanDuel right now. Eric Bledsoe is also extremely cheap at $5,400 on DraftKings. I have him getting around 30 minutes today. Middleton is a pretty reasonable price point. Small forward only eligibility, 7,300. How are we breaking down the big three for the Bucks, starting with Antetokounmpo?
I think he's the most favorably priced. He's just clearly at a price point he shouldn't be at. The minutes are the only concern that you run into with him, but it's not like he was averaging 38 minutes a game or something in the regular season. He typically plays around 31 minutes. In the first round last year against Detroit, he averaged about 28 and a half minutes per game. I bring that up just because, obviously the first round matchup isn't the most competitive. But average 28 and a half minutes. If the game is competitive, I don't expect him to, I expect 35, 36 minutes. But you do have to account for just how, I think, outmatched Orlando is, and that shows up in Giannis's averages. But this is someone that averages around 2 fantasy points per minute. Orlando's missing their 2 best chances of slowing him down as individual defenders in Isaac and Gordon. I think that a $10,500 price tag on Giannis very clearly accounts for any of the issues that you're going to bring up about his playing time or whatever else.
What about the other guys?
I think that Bledsoe and Middleton's salaries are okay. I'd be careful. I have a rule set not to get more than one of them with Giannis in a lineup because, if I don't really see any reason to be playing like Giannis, Middleton, Bledsoe together because that's just asking for the game to be over in 3/4. But I do think Brooke Lopez is interesting. He's only 4,700 on DraftKings. He played huge minutes in the playoffs last year. And going up against a true center in Vooch, where they would probably like to have Lopez out there matched up with him, I think you get mid-30s in minutes, assuming a remotely competitive game from Lopez too. So at only 4,700, I think, maybe he gets lost in the mix a little bit, especially because he's only a center. But I think the minutes should be there for him.
Okay. Brooke Lopez right now is definitely going to be semi-popular here. At least he was earlier in the day. Yeah, you're getting at 4,700 on DraftKings. His ownership right now popping up around 25%. On FanDuel, Brooke Lopez, where you have, very limited eligibility there. He's coming in at, hold on one second, 6%, 5,800. So there's a big gap there in ownership and in price point. And obviously the fact that you could only roster one guy at the 5. Does Brooke Lopez or anybody else from Milwaukee at all appeal to you?
Yeah, I like Lopez a lot on DraftKings, as I mentioned. It's mostly Giannis and Lopez, mixing in some Bledsoe and then Middleton, I think, in that order.
All right, so Miami and Indiana. Miami, I think, opened at 4. You've seen them move to 4.5 and 5 in some spots, but I'm seeing 4.5, 215 total. The biggest thing for me here, we'll get to Dragic in a moment, starting with Kendrick Nunn moving to the bench and his return back to the bubble, is the Miami Heat should be able to obliterate Indy on the boards. So you have a Pacers team that is second to last in rebounding rate since entering the bubble. The only team worse is the Houston Rockets, but no team is allowing more offensive rebounds to opponents than the Pacers, and only the Rockets are allowing more defensive rebounds. Miles Turner is a below average rebounding center. Sabonis is gone, and they simply don't have guys that are quality rebounders unless, Adam, you believe that TJ Warren's going to continue to haul in rebounds at a 20% clip, which I don't, and I don't think that foot's going to help him much either. So I mentioned Bam Adebayo just moments ago. This is one of the reasons I really like him today. I think he's going to have a lot of easy opportunities around the basket against a very poor rebounding team on both sides of the court. And I think it's going to contribute to Miami really being able to lay it on the Pacers today.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot for Miami as well. I'm right there with you on Bam. I think that the combination of a poor rebounding Indiana team, him just being a productive player in all facets of the game from a fantasy standpoint, picking up assists, points, and rebounds. He should play big minutes here, assuming that Indiana hangs in this game. And the salary is affordable. He's in the mid 7K range, whereas, you mentioned it before, Vooch is $1,200, $1,300 more expensive than him on DraftKings. So I think everything looks really good for Bam as a mid-range play. I think the same goes for Jimmy Butler, who, missed a couple of games during the bubble, but I'm not concerned about that. I think that with it being the playoffs now, he plays his full minutes and he's in the mid 7K range as well. The ball should be in his hands a ton and he should be looking to take over the game. So as far as mid-range plays go on this slate, where there are a lot of value plays, there are a lot of expensive plays, I think that as far as the mid-range goes, Butler and Bam both stand out as two of my favorites.
Okay, Butler across the board, just on DraftKings or where?
I've only built lineups on DraftKings, so that's what I'm referring to there.
Okay, so the rest of this team starts to get intriguing when you talk about Goran Dragic, who, with Butler on the floor this year, his per minute production drops below 1. With him off the floor, it's 1.14. Usage is going to drop around 6-7% with Butler on the floor. Assist rate comes down a few percent. That's expected. But Goran Dragic is, number one, very cheap. Number two, expected to start. And number three, might play some additional minutes. But I can't help but think, based on how we've seen his rotations look all year long, that Erik Spoelstra is just going to run Goran Dragic out there for 34 minutes just because he's starting.
Yeah, I mean, I think I only have Dragic in at 30 minutes, and I think that's on the low end. Like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if you got more than that, like you said. With his salary being as cheap as it is, though, you don't even really need the extra minutes. He does take he should take a usage hit with Butler. He's played 677 minutes with Butler on the floor this year. He's averaged 0.94 DraftKings points per minute with a 22% usage rate, but still a 28.2% assist percentage. So I think he does look like a really good value. He's right up there with Markelle Fultz for me as far as just cheap guard value that is very, very clearly underpriced.
Would you say right now he's one of your favorite or your favorite value plays?
One of my favorites, yeah.
One of your favorite.
I have him a little bit behind Fultz.
Okay, I was going to ask you, him and Fultz, very similarly priced. I think Goran Dragic should be a little bit more involved here, but being that he's in the starting lineup, he won't be nearly as involved as I shouldn't say nearly as involved, but he won't be as involved as he would be off the bench, where he's staggered with Butler and doesn't have the same rotation as him. I'm wondering, maybe Spoelstra will stagger them. That could be helpful, but it's not going to be to the same extent as it would be with Dragic coming off of the bench. Right now, you're talking about DraftKings ownership, where Markelle Fultz is popping at 48% and Goran Dragic at 42%. There's 4 guys right now, Adam, that are projected for 40+% ownership. 2 of them are very expensive. The other 2 are Dragic and Fultz. So is this a spot where you just might go super overweight on Dragic and Fultz instead of going underweight on them?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Like, in the lineups I'm building right now, it just seems like I have them as such good values relative to everyone else that I'd rather be mixing and matching, some of these other plays than getting cute there. I'm working on my final crunch now, so I'll see where it comes in with updated ownership. But that's been my game plan for most of the day. Okay.
And, one thing to consider when it comes to cheap chalk, I know you and I have talked about this a lot, but it's probably pretty important. If it's like a chalky Danny Green, that's different than a chalky Dragic or a chalky Markelle Fultz, guys who can actually bring the ball up the court, guys who can actually be, function as facilitators and can do more than just hit spot up threes, right? Same thing with value centers. Again, we've beat this dead horse many times, but for anyone that's still unsure of it, there are a couple positions where value, even if they're chalky, is still worth getting to. Whereas I'll take my chances on like a KCP. I'll take my chances fading a chalk KCP day because you're projecting him for 28 minutes and maybe he knocks down 5 3-pointers and does nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like yesterday when you had a really popular Royce O'Neal and a really popular Jordan Clarkson. I personally went 100% Clarkson and didn't have a single Royce O'Neal lineup in tournaments because they're just completely different types of players, where one of them absolutely can end the slate and the other one might hit 7 or 8x, but he's really unlikely to put up a raw score that you have to have. Fultz and Dragic, because of how involved they are in the offense, are much more in the Jordan Clarkson range than the Royce O'Neal range.
JNY says Dragic way better than Fultz. Fella, you're preaching to the choir, but when we're talking about fantasy and you talk about pace of play and projected minutes and salaries, they're actually pretty comparable. So, a lot of people saying there's no way I'm playing Magic, not getting Magic players into my lineup. No need for that. It's a bold move, Cotton.
Any optimizer you're using to give you the best lineups will disagree that there's no need for that.
No need to fade Orlando, you're saying?
Yeah, I'm saying whoever said there was no need to get to Orlando.
Gotcha.
They're pretty necessary.
Yeah, it sure feels like that. Do you have anything else for the Heat?
I think that there's outside of Dragic, there's some other value here with Jay Crowder at 3,900 and Duncan Robinson at 4,300. I think Crowder gets in like the 30 to 32 minute range. I expect around 35 from Duncan Robinson, if not more. So, those guys not as appealing as Dragic, Butler, and Bam, but I do think that they are reasonable value plays as well.
Okay. What about, by the way, Aiden, thank you for the super chat. Much appreciated. Appreciate all the support you guys can give us. The simplest way, by the way, is to hit that thumbs up button if you haven't done so yet. It helps us out a ton and get more eyes on the show so we can keep doing free content here and keep putting out better content every single day. So if you haven't done so yet, what do the streamers say, Adam? Not hammer the thumbs up. What do they say?
I have absolutely no idea.
Really? Chat will know. Not slam the fuck it. Whatever. Smash the thumbs up. Thank you, Jordan Klein. Smash that thumbs up button. That's so corny. I'll never say that again. All right. Indiana on the other side. Are you worried about TJ Warren's plantar fasciitis?
I mean, concerned as in if I look at a lineup with TJ Warren in it, will I feel super comfortable? No, but I'm not projecting him differently. Fortunately, he's expensive enough that I won't be getting much, if any, anyway, because I am projecting him like he's still TJ Warren and not like he transformed into Steph Curry by going to Orlando. I still gave him a lot of minutes. I gave him, I think, 38 or 39 minutes, which was the most I gave anybody on Indiana. That obviously could be wrong. I don't know how bad the issue is, but fortunately, it's not something that I have to be too concerned with given the salary. Okay.
Let's start in the backcourt, work our way to the front court here. We'll be done 2 games, got 2 to go. We'll have about 30 minutes and we'll take some questions as well. What are we doing with guys like Brogdon and Oladipo? Brogdon 6,800, Oladipo 6,200 on DraftKings. Do you have interest in any of these backcourt members for the Pacers today?
Yeah, especially Brogdon. I think that Oladipo, I think, plays big minutes, but his salary's come up a little bit. He's in that same range as Brogdon, and Brogdon's just clearly been the more productive player. Oladipo, not that he's bad now, but he's not what he used to be prior to the injury. And Brogdon is very, very heavily involved in the offense, obviously. I have him with about a 30% assist percentage in the games he's played without Sabonis and with Oladipo this year, 23.5% usage rate, which obviously is appealing as well. And I think should play big minutes here. We saw in a couple of games in the bubble, upper 30s from Brogdon. I have him in for 38 minutes today against Miami. So I think that he's a bit underpriced. Oladipo is, I think, more correctly priced.
Are you
Brogdon, I think, very clearly stands out as the top play for me from Indiana.
Who does? Brogdon does. You talked about Warren in terms of being worried about or not being worried about the injury. Are you getting to Warren at $8,000 or $7,500 on FanDuel?
I could see it on FanDuel. On DraftKings, like I said, the big reason I'm not too concerned about the injury is that I'm not going to get to him anyway. On FanDuel, it's a little different. I mean, he still doesn't project the top small forward for me, but he's at least in play. I still would have James, Gallinari, Giannis, Eric Gordon ahead of him, and him basically the same as Evan Fournier factoring in salaries. So I would have more exposure to Warren on FanDuel than DraftKings, but it still wouldn't be the guy that I have the most of at small forward or anything.
Would you say Indy is one of your least favorite teams, least attractive teams today?
Yeah, if you exclude Brogdon, I'm not sure how much Indy I would get to at all.
I'm with you. I also think you're overpaying for Miles Turner as well.
Yep, I agree. Especially when you have, Brooke Lopez on the slate for cheap. You have Bam, who's not that much more expensive.
He's $200 more. That's it. It's crazy. So, yeah. All right. What about OKC and Houston? Before we do, I want to shout out our sponsor, SuperDraft. If you haven't done so yet, you want to download it in the App Store or you want to check it out at superdraft.io. Most of you guys know how it works, but if you don't and you're new to the show, you're new to the channel, and you're new to SuperDraft, well, listen up. It's very cool. There's no salaries. It's a straight multiplier mode, meaning that somebody like Giannis, somebody like Damian Lillard, LeBron, or James Harden, if they score 70 or they score 60, that's exactly what they get. On the contrary, if you have somebody like Markelle Fultz today and you decide you want to play him, Markelle Fultz has a 1.6 multiplier, so he's getting 60% more fantasy points than he actually scores. Goran Dragic, 1.6 himself. That's the type of production you're getting from these guys, and that's how you want to play it. So when you're looking at projections, Sal said it earlier today, generally guys with 1x multipliers aren't going to be that appealing, but Harden's projecting for so much that, he's still going to be popular. If you said, all right, I'm going to go super cheap with James Ennis, 1.9, I'm not suggesting you do that, but you can. So the value guys, instead of getting salary to free up cap space, are giving you as much as 2 times their actual points. So if one guy goes for 35 fantasy points and he's like minimum salary on DraftKings, probably 2x multiplier on SuperDraft, going to give you 70 fantasy points. That's how it works. You got the $8,000 NBA jump shot today. Very attainable wins too, like $1,500 up top. No, it's not $100,000, but you actually have a real legitimate shot of winning these things. And you're going to at times get some overlay as well. So keep an eye out for that. SuperDraft.io, or download it in the App Store. If you haven't signed up yet, use the promo code Awesemo10, AWESEMO10, all one word. Get $10 in super cash. Play it on the site. It's as good as real money to use on the site to play and win real money. Awesemo10 will get you $10 if you deposit $10 or more. Or if you deposit $100 or more, you get $20 in super cash injected directly into your bankroll. So check it out in the App Store, superdraft.io. Remember, Awesemo10, AWESEMO10, all one word. All right. OKC and Houston. Adam, Houston Rockets, 1.5-point dogs here. The Thunder are laying 1.5 points. I was a little surprised by that. It's come down. It was 2.5. In some spots, it was 3, 224.5 total. Let's actually kick it off with the Thunder. How do you see this working for them, given their lineup? With Schroeder back in the bubble, you've got SGA, you've got Chris Paul. They have arguably the best 3-guard rotation, right, in the league in terms of like 3 actual point guards, swingmen / guys, or combo guards. How does that play against Houston today, who will be without Russell Westbrook?
Yeah, it makes me think that you probably see a lot of those 3-guard lineups because they can against Houston. So I think that, giving, in addition to just being the playoffs, but giving a couple extra minutes to guys like Schroeder and Gilgeous-Alexander and Paul, I think makes sense because they clearly can play these guys together. Lou Dort not going to play, so basically you're just taking minutes from like Terrence Ferguson, which isn't very difficult to do. So I think all 3 guards are appealing. It's a really fast-paced Houston team. The only thing that I think makes it difficult to get to the OKC guards, or I guess downgrades them a little bit, is that there is such good guard value, especially with Fultz and Dragic, but also, you throw Duncan Robinson in there, Malcolm Brogdon in the mid-range, James Harden obviously at the top. So I think the guard positions are pretty stacked, and that'll keep overall exposure to the Oklahoma City guards lower than it otherwise would be. But I do think that all 3 of them are in good spots.
The big question a lot of people had, and Sal and I discussed this in the morning, was will Steven Adams get run off the floor? And my simple approach to this is Billy Donovan's going to go with the flow of this game. So just to repeat myself from earlier, if Houston's missing shots and Steven Adams is eating up every possible rebound, then no, he's not going to get run off the floor. If they have trouble spacing, if they can't guard Harden, if they can't guard the perimeter and Steven Adams is left hung out to dry and Houston's knocking down every shot they make, then yeah, Steven Adams' rotation probably gets curtailed a bit. But Adam, before the game starts, before we see what's actually going on, it's very difficult to say whether or not he's going to play 30 minutes or 13 minutes.
Yeah, I'm projecting it pretty normally. I have Adams in for 29. I have Noel at 17 or 18. And then I assume Gallo plays a few minutes at the 5 as well. So yeah, I'm projecting it pretty normally. Adams' salary is high enough where I'm not really getting to him anyway because, again, I just like Bam so much. And I also like Brooke Lopez for a lot less. So yeah, I'm treating it like normal. I think there will be a ton of rebounds there for Adams. I still don't have him coming out as a top center play for me though.
Okay. Oh, I don't either whatsoever. But I'm just saying I wouldn't immediately interpret this matchup as Steven Adams doesn't play at all.
Yeah, I agree. You and I have talked about it before. Like, Houston's a weird matchup for a lot of teams, but the first strategy for most teams isn't going to be let's entirely change how we play so that we can go defend PJ Tucker.
Exactly. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel before the wheel breaks.
Right. Exactly. Like, yeah, if Houston's just hitting wide open three after wide open three, then, they might change things. But you also have to keep in mind, too, that they need rim protection. Like, Harden's going to attack the basket. So it's not like Adams has no role, in this game.
Right. Yeah, it's like the Rudy Gobert scenario. Oh, dude, Rudy gets run off the floor. He plays 20 minutes. He ends up playing 38. You know what I mean? Because he actually can help the team. It really all depends, man.
The Rockets are built to just, play 5 out and shoot threes. Why would a team going into the game say, hey, we didn't construct our roster this way, but let's go play the same way as Houston?
Right. Let's play a completely defensive brand of basketball and abandon what we do.
Right.
Right. It doesn't make sense. Could it turn that way? Sure. I don't know if it will. Do you have any top options from OKC? Is Gallo in play for you? I've seen his name a lot. Round out this OKC analysis, and then we'll move to Houston.
Yeah, I think Gallo is really interesting because we saw his minutes basically limited all bubble long. Even in games where you could look and just say, oh, it was a blowout, but his first half rotation, he would play like 11 minutes or whatever. I assume he's back to playing 30, 32 minutes here. He's pretty inexpensive. Ford isn't anywhere near as deep as the guard positions today. So I do get to some Gallo. I think I'll probably get to more Gallo than anyone else on OKC just because of the position that he plays. But overall, I think they're all pretty comparable for me. I think they're priced about where they should be. Their median projections don't blow away their salaries, but they do have plenty of upside at their price points. So, kind of just mixing and matching these guys throughout lineups. I do have it set not to get more than 2 of the guards just because I think they'll eat into each other's production somewhat at least.
Okay. Did that wrap it up for OKC for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, the one other thing I did want to mention is the one concern that I do have with OKC is that they don't really have a ton of good rebounders. So they might have trouble taking full advantage of a situation with Houston where they are missing shots. If Houston starts grabbing offensive boards, it's going to be a very, very long day. How many minutes, by the way, are you giving Bazley?
24.
24. Okay. Let's talk about Houston. We know this. I'll say it again. James Harden, usage rate close to 45% without Westbrook this year, 1.88 fantasy points per minute. I think his assist rate's almost 50, like 48%. They're insane numbers. That's without taking Capella off the court too. So just crazy, insane, ludicrous numbers without Westbrook. You're going to see more of that today, Adam, and he's priced for it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's just still pretty easy to get to him. This is a game where obviously you don't have playing time concerns because it's the playoffs. And so I don't really have any reason not to get to Harden. The usage rate goes up so high. He should play huge minutes. It's not like it's a terrible matchup or anything. I have no reason not to get to Harden today.
Gage says, if I'm playing one lineup today in a single entry tournament on FanDuel, do I go balanced and fade Harden and Giannis and Davis, or try to play 2 of those? I guess he left out the thought of playing one of them. And I'm not being condescending. I'm serious. Like which approach would you take? I know you're not playing FanDuel, but just in general, does it feel like more of a stars and scrubs days or a balance? I would definitely not go full out balance in a playoff.
I would want at least Harden.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I said when he left out potentially going with one of them, because if you're going full out balance in a playoff slate where a lot of these studs could be playing 40 minutes, 38 to 40 minutes, you're going to get yourself into serious trouble.
Yeah, I would be trying to fit 2 of them, but definitely fitting Harden.
Okay. Where else are you going with Houston? I think we've locked down the consensus take on James Harden. There's the Austin Rivers, Robert Covington, guys, Ben McLemore, PJ Tucker. This is who we'll be dealing with today. Eric Gordon is back in the mix after a brief hiatus. Where do you stand on non-James Harden Rockets players?
A lot less interested in everything else here. I think Eric Gordon is the next most appealing because you should have his minutes staggered with Harden. So he's playing, for whatever minutes Harden's not on the floor, which I don't expect to be more than 10. You're getting Gordon running the offense, and then he'll be out there to hopefully knock down open shots when Harden's out there. So it's not like he projects as a great play, but he is still cheap enough that I have some interest there. As far as the wings go, they're all priced up a bit from what happened during the bubble. So, I expect really big minutes for Robert. Well, I expect big minutes for all of them, but in particular for Covington. But again, it's just, he's not in a great rebounding spot. He's not going to be a high usage guy, and he's relatively expensive. So beyond Harden, I'm not getting a ton of any of these guys.
Okay. Jordan Klein producing today's show behind the glass as always. Jordan, I swear to God, every time we do a show, there's always a delicious looking gourmet slice of pizza in your hand. I swear. Looks delicious. Made me really hungry. Hold that up. What do we got? Oh yeah, that looks good. You're eating that cold too. Yeah, I'll eat some gourmet pizza cold. Nobody can see it, but it looks pretty good. Guy lives in Chicago too. Do you want to move on, or is there anything else to wrap up this game?
No, I think we can move on.
Okay. Yo, if you use the promo, I forgot to mention this earlier. If you use the promo code Mamba, like Kobe Bryant, Mamba, MAMBA, you can get a week of NBA Awesemo plus NBA content for $8.24. It's good through Mamba Day, which is $8.24. You understand why that is the number and why that is how much we're giving it away for. But it's everything for NBA. Ownership projections, player projections, the boom bust tool, all of our premium articles. I think the lineup builder's in there as well. You name it. Everything for the week. So if you've been wanting to try it out, but you haven't gotten around to it, or maybe you're tight on cash. I know it's a difficult time for a lot of people, and we feel for you. But $8.24 for the entire week, everything NBA on the site, all of our premium content for $8.24. You've got through $8.24 to do that. I would jump in on it today, though, just to take full advantage of these 4-game slates, because we've got at least another week, all the way up until the 24th of August. We've got 4 games on every single slate, and that's running through game 4. After that, if teams get swept, then we're going to have 2 and 3 game slates. But for at least the next week, we've got that. So use that promo code Mamba when you sign out. It's an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for everything NBA. $8.24. It's 50% off everything we have in NBA tools, projections, ownership, boom bust tool, and all of our premium articles. You name it on the site. Mamba. You got till the 24th for $8.24. We'll see you over there. Oh, and by the way, check out the premium Slack chat if you join. Talking sports all day long. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them for you. Portland and the Lakers, Adam, 3 up, 1 to go. Here's a kind of interesting one, and then we'll take some questions. The Portland Trailblazers have been the darlings of the bubble outside of the Phoenix Suns, who I would have loved to have seen them make it, because I don't even know if it's going to make a difference. Maybe the Blazers steal a game here, but I don't think they stand much of a chance given how poorly their defense has played and how many struggles they've had rebounding against teams that really don't even have big front courts. Damian Lillard's very expensive. Like on SuperDraft, he's a 1x multiplier. On DraftKings, he's 11.4. He's $900 more expensive than Giannis. On FanDuel, Lillard's coming in at 10-1, which I think is a lot more reasonable given that there are 3 players more expensive than him today, and Harden, Giannis, and LeBron. But it's not a particularly appealing matchup for them against the Lakers, for whether it be McCollum, Lillard, or Nurkic. They could run into a buzzsaw here. Maybe you have a different opinion.
No, I don't. It is a really terrible matchup. Now you're also missing Zach Collins, so I don't know what the hell they do defensively. Not that
Win-win Gabriel, baby.
Yeah, not that he's the answer, but I think obviously they're starting Gabriel. Once he fouls out 3 minutes in, I think that you'll see some. I think you will see some Whiteside plus Nurkic front court. I think the Lakers are kind of set up for that, and the alternatives are playing like Mario Hezonja. So I think you'll see some of that. Probably not enough to make Whiteside a play. But the other problem you run into with Portland is that they played so many competitive games in the bubble that you were getting. Damian Lillard averaged like 42 minutes per game. The prices on all these guys are just jacked up from that. Damian Lillard's $11,400 on DraftKings. James Harden's 11.7. Giannis is 10.5. There's just, you can, he's going to be contrarian. If you're getting your ass kicked after during the 4 o'clock game, you can pivot your Harden to Lillard and try and get lucky. But he just doesn't project remotely the same as Harden. He projects very similarly, I think, a little bit behind guys like Giannis, who are a lot cheaper. So, it's really tough to get the Lillard outside of just pure ownership considerations. Nurkic is priced up. He's even more expensive than Vooch. McCollum's expensive. Like, these guys have been playing so many competitive games. It's just really, really difficult to roster them at their current salaries.
Yeah. And another thing to consider is, like, I've seen comments in chat, not on this show, but earlier on the show, like, well, yeah, but Lavi, the Lakers haven't played well either. The Lakers didn't have anything to play for. When you hear, oh, well, the Lakers barely beat the Denver Nuggets scrubs in the second half of that game. I get it, but there's no doubt, and neither of us are professional NBA or professional basketball players, but there's no doubt that like LeBron and Anthony Davis aren't like that. They don't know that game has absolutely zero meaning whatsoever. So,
and to be fair, I also don't think the Lakers are good. But
you say what? You don't think they are?
No, I think it's a terrible matchup for Portland. I don't think like the Lakers Clippers debate. I'm firmly on the Clippers side, but that doesn't.
So am I.
Yeah,
but I still think the Lakers win 4 or 5 games here.
Right. I think that they do very well in this series. I'm just saying that like I'm definitely not a huge fan of this Lakers team, but I agree with you that they're clearly better than Portland.
Right. So what I'm saying is don't use their performance in the bubble in the seeding games as a benchmark for how they're going to perform in the playoffs. Like they're probably not as good as a lot of people think, but they're better than they were in games where they literally had nothing to play for. That's what I'm saying. So
agreed.
So would you say overall Portland is just a team that you're largely ignoring, or just not ignoring, but not getting much of?
Yes.
Okay. What about the Lakers? What about LeBron and Anthony Davis?
I think I'm getting to both of those guys. Obviously, they're in that same price range as Giannis. I have more Giannis than either of them because Giannis does produce at the highest clip, but I expect more minutes from Davis and LeBron just because of how much better than Orlando and Milwaukee is. So it does make them I think appealing plays. I do expect them to play better now that the games matter. And we touched on it when we talked about Portland, but there's nobody out there to slow down Anthony Davis, really. So I think it's obviously a great spot for him. I'm not playing them in the same lineups. So I'm, I think about between 1/3 and 1/2 of my lineups have one of those two. Okay.
Does anything appeal to you in a Danny Green getting 20% plus ownership?
I have more than that. I don't. Not that I'm super happy about it, but Portland is terrible defensively for one. Danny Green, I think, is the epitome of the guy who they just kind of are, letting just, kind of walk through the regular season. He's there for the playoffs. He's on this team for the playoffs, and Portland does have two obviously dominant scorers in the backcourt, which Danny Green's job.
Oh, he's going to play a lot of minutes, especially with Avery Bradley out of the bubble. I don't disagree with that at all.
Right. Yeah. So I projected him for 30 minutes. He'd been playing 26 or whatever during the bubble, but I have him at 30. His job is to hit open threes and defend Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. So he's basically min salary facing a terrible defense. I'm taking a shot on Danny. I'm taking a lot of shots on Danny Green.
24%, baby. Oh man. All right. What would you be happy with from Danny Green?
Happy? 28
what would satisfy his salary today, given the ownership and his $3,200 price point?
I mean, preferably 30.
30? What's his boom percentage? Is it negative? Hold on. 6.4% boom percentage, 44.3% bust percentage. That sounds about right. Look, I get what you're doing. I do. And I think your reasoning is fine. I just know he's the type of guy that can hit 6 threes and still have less than 20 fantasy points.
Yeah. I mean,
that would be tough because 6 threes, 18.
That is 20.
He'd need 3 turnovers and no peripherals. Right? Yeah. I think so. Anyway, God, Markelle Fultz in the boom bust tool is insane. Did you see these numbers?
No.
55.6% boom, 8% bust percentage.
Hope he's right.
Yeah, let's hope. That's pretty crazy though, man. That's easily the wow. That's insane. I wouldn't say his ceiling is particularly high, but Markelle Fultz in a spot to not necessarily kill you. We'll find out.
I wanted to go back real quick to something I mentioned during the Orlando game, not playing Augustine and Fultz together. I am redoing that because I noticed when I made my lineup, since I have about 100% faults, it means I have 0 Augustine, and having 0 of $3,500 Augustine didn't seem like a great idea. So with that in consideration, I'm playing them together, just obviously not in every lineup.
All right. Anything else on the Lakers before we take some questions here?
We mentioned Green. I mean, the natural or logical pivot to Green is to go to KCP. Not that I had Green as the better play, but that would kind of be what you wanted to do. JaVale McGee, I think you can take some shots at as a value play. If you're going stars and scrubs, you're trying to get like Giannis plus Harden. JaVale McGee, I have him in for 16 minutes, but he's almost the minimum salary. He produces at a high rate per minute when he's on the floor. So I do have some of him.
Okay. 4 up, 4 down. Let's make it happen. I wanted to make some time for questions. We got 10 minutes to go here. John asked, how many minutes are you giving waiters in KCP? By the way, I'm sorry, Adam. Somebody mentioned something in chat, and I thought it was a good point. It's worth repeating. Playoff rotation. Well, he didn't say it like this. I'm going to say it like this. A little bit more polished. Playoff rotations are condensed considerably. You're going to see some coaches run 8-man rotation. If Terry Stotts runs 8 guys today, you should not be surprised. There will be coaches that only run a couple guys off the bench. Nick Nurse is notorious for doing so, giving all of his starters 40-plus minutes, maybe OG a little bit less, but you get the point. So guys that were very good in the seeding games that were getting additional minutes off the bench are very unlikely to do that unless they are key pieces of the rotation. So I wanted to say that, Adam. Go ahead.
Yeah, completely agree. As far as waiters goes, I think I have him at like 18 minutes, and that's if Rondo doesn't play.
Dope Heathen, can you play Dame, Harden, LeBron, and AD in a lineup?
I would definitely recommend doing that, yeah.
I wonder if you even have enough salary remaining.
I mean, on SuperDraft.
Oh, on SuperDraft, you actually could. On DraftKings, you'd have $1,400 per player remaining for the final 4.
Do you need 4 more players?
Actually, would you do that on SuperDraft? That's a fine question. If we're talking strictly SuperDraft, he might not.
Well, I don't have the multipliers in front of me. I assume they're all 1x, so no.
Yeah, LeBron's 1.05, I think.
It doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't at all. Okay, what else? Green with a bunch of puking faces.
I agree.
No Crowder or Ennis love coming from Slack chat.
Said I like them both.
Said he likes them both. All right. Schroeder, Ennis, or Ross and Gordon?
Schroeder, Ennis.
Yeah, I think it's got to be Schroeder and Ennis, honestly. You're getting one player that you know is going to play good minutes. Let's see here. What's we got? None or Green? Your answer is going to be Green on those.
Green. Yeah. I have none at like 26 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not. I'll be honest. I'm not excited about either of those guys. The fact that Dragic is being placed into the starting lineup, Tyler Hero's there. They're getting healthy. I worry that you're not going to get enough minutes for None. Completely scoring dependent. The same as Green. I don't like either. Questions on Jeff Green. Okay, that's actually a good question from Bad Santa. Are we giving Jeff Green enough minutes to be productive in a spot like this? When I mentioned guys like Rivers and McLemore and Tucker and Covington, I did forget to mention Jeff Green, who has been able to inject some instant offense into this shorthanded Houston team at times. But Jeff Green's price is just at a point where it's pretty hard to get to.
That's the problem for me. I have him at, I think, 25, 26 minutes, but, James Harden's shooting the ball a lot. And Green's salary, he's one of the guys that, his salary came up as a result of how he played in the bubble and the minutes he got. So I think it's a really unappealing price point.
Question from Slack. You mentioned JaVale McGee. Any thoughts on Dwight Howard? How many minutes do you give Howard in a spot like this?
I have Howard at 18, McGee at 16.
Okay.
Don't remember the prices off the top of my head. So
3,700 for Howard, 31 for McGee.
Yeah, so I got on DraftKings, I have like 3% Howard and like 10% McGee.
Okay. Yeah, I like that, Johnny. I do. I look solid. Kuzma or Baisley, who gets more fantasy points?
Kuzma.
Well, what'd you say?
Kuzma.
Do you have any love for Baisley?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I like to be. I said it like that because I had already made fun of people on Twitter the other day for playing Baisley with everyone healthy. But no, I mean, I think he plays mid-20s because they are short on the wings now. But his salary's up for him dominating during the preseason. I don't care, or not during the bubble. I don't care how well he shot during the bubble. He's not some new player. He's averaged like 0.7 DraftKings points per minute this season. Any additional minutes he does get are going to be with good players on the floor. I just couldn't care less what he did in the bubble, and giving him a few extra minutes doesn't make him like a $4,500 player.
Right. Andre in premium Slack chat says, I got a lot of Daniel House on FanDuel. Are you okay with that? Just for perspective, Adam, he's 4K at small forward. James Ennis is also 4K. Justin Holiday's 4,200. Dion Waiters is 3,800. So those are the guys priced around him.
Yeah, I think that's okay.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. It's pretty cheap. Guillaume. Apologize if I butchered your name. Appreciate that super chat, man. Much appreciated. Huge help around this way. He says, thanks for all the great content, guys. Would you play Fultz and Augustine together on DraftKings, even at the cost of the guard spot on an early game? Adam, my problem is that even though Augustine and Fultz will probably overlap a little bit, there is a good chance that Fultz in the starting lineup siphons minutes away from Augustine. So they're very cheap. Is a depressed salary enough for you to say, yes, I won't set a rule against that? Or would you set a rule against Augustine and Fultz in the same lineup?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that I'd originally set that rule, and then I realized it just meant I was going to have 0 DJ Augustine because I had 100% Fultz. So I got rid of the rule. So I have some lineups with both, but not a lot of them. And if I were making one lineup, I wouldn't want both.
Okay. And thanks again for the super chat. Let's see here. Duncan Robinson. Any thoughts on Robinson?
Yeah.
Robensin.
I think he plays big minutes. He's cheap and gets a little bit less love than some of these other value guys.
Brolo or Jeff Green? Definitely Brolo. Even in a tournament, it's still. We talked about Middleton already. You like him. Spamming questions won't get them answered. Fultz or Ross? Fultz. But I forget where you said you were on Ross. I think Ross does have a pathway to a pretty decent game here if he shoots well early.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's Fultz over Ross, but I do like Ross as much as anyone ever likes Ross.
Augustine or Holiday?
Oh, man. Assuming Aaron.
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming too.
Augustine? Hopefully not much of either.
Any thoughts on Kelly Olynyk?
I have it like 16 or 18 minutes. I don't think this is a spot where he plays much. I would expect to see more Crowder. Obviously Bam is playing as many minutes as he can at center. Because Indiana has TJ Warren playing the 4. Like if they had Sabonis, I'd have some interest in Olynyk. But with the lineup Indiana's rolling out there, I think you see more of the small Indiana or Miami lineups to counter. And so I'm not really sure where Olynyk's role fits in.
Okay. 2 more here. Jeremiah asks, on DraftKings, would you stack Butler or would you play Butler with Dragic or Bledsoe and SGA? I honestly don't mind either of them. I lean Butler Dragic though.
Yeah, I like both. I like both pairings. I would go Butler Dragic.
Yeah. And it's funny. The other day I DM'd you. I was like, yo, Nurkic and Whiteside just played around 7 minutes together in the first half. That's crazy. Someone asked, do we think they play together? Or maybe it was 5 minutes. But still, do we think they play together today? I think you have to say that they do, especially with Collins out.
Yeah, I think they do. I don't think it's enough that I'm really interested in Whiteside.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, I gave Nurkic like 38 minutes. I gave Whiteside 18. So I have them playing alongside each other. But if you assume Nurkic doesn't get in foul trouble and plays huge minutes, and we just saw him play 40 in the playoff game, that still would mean for Whiteside to start being a play, he needs to play a lot of minutes alongside him. And the problem is that those minutes are also going to be less productive normally because now you have 2 giant rebounders out there.
Right. Butler or Bam on DraftKings?
I think I might have identical exposure.
I like them both a lot.
Yeah, I have 21. I have 21. I have 27% Butler and 29% Bam.
Okay. How much is Hassan Whiteside again? He's
4,400.
44. Okay.
It's not the craziest big field tournament play.
It's not. It's not, because remember under Eric Spoelstra in Miami, he would play like 15 minutes and give you a 15, 12 double and crazy numbers.
Yeah, it's definitely I don't think I got to any, but it's definitely one where I'm like, I at least can see the possibility of being really pissed off later that I didn't.
Me too. Like, okay, would you rather play PJ Tucker or Whiteside? Tucker's 4,100, Whiteside's 4,400. And we know Tucker will get a lot of minutes, but Whiteside is just an immensely better per minute guy. How about that?
I mean, I guess I have to say Tucker since I have 4% Tucker and 0 Whiteside, but that's kind of where, as a making, 150 lineups, you don't get to like hand choose who's in every lineup. If I were making like one lineup and trying to win a tournament, I think Whiteside would be my priority.
All right. Well, sorry we couldn't get to all of the questions. You can always tweet us, by the way. You got to follow us, though. Show a little love. Follow us at Loughy_D, LOUGHY_D, and at Ship My Money DFS on Twitter. Thanks for tuning in, as always, guys. Best of luck today. We will be back with you tomorrow on another edition of NBA Live Before Lock, presented by SuperDraft.